brothers and sisters!
This is a journey into sound.
The fattest, funkiest tunes in town.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Stockhouse U Pre-Market Show, a place where we are not financial advisors and we do not give out financial advice, but we are a group of friends who truly and honestly enjoy the hell out of talking about these stocks every single morning, trying to come up with strategies, ways that we can be profitable during the day. I'm joined by some of my favorite people, and I welcome anybody who wants to talk to hop up, raise your hand, hop up on stage. This is open for anybody. And let's talk about some stocks. Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning, Elaine. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Liv.
Good morning, Christopher.
Good morning, everybody, and let's get into it.
Good morning, Liv.
Good morning, everyone.
Well, first things first, we normally start the day off with some quotes, and today is a quote that I heard in some room last night because, you know, whatever, Clubhouse runs the culture of everything at this point. And it's the quote goes, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's just what you know for sure. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." And it's just the idea of when people are the most certain, that's when we've seen some of the biggest mistakes in humanity, you know, some of the worst tragedies, to be honest. And it kind of, you know, provides some background to my ideology on looking at the stock market, where I really don't try to predict things. I have my activation levels. I read the chart. I trade the chart. I don't trade the chart in my head, you know? So today we're going to look at some charts and try not to be biased and just objectively look at this information and create some points and some action items so that we can react appropriately. Who else has a quote?
I'll jump in. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Mine's is pretty simple. It's you only fail when you stop trying.
All right. I'm going to Leonardo da Vinci today. So one of my goals, New Year's resolutions, I should say, was to not have, 230 trades this year. I think that's way over trading. I was learning how to hedge last year a lot, and I think it's just better to stick to the positions. I would have been off a lot better if I would have just held tight and firm through the dips instead of trying to hedge my bet, and I ended up losing a lot of money doing that. And so my quote of the day is, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, wow. Liv, what do you got for us, man?
So I have one by Maureen O'Brien Flaherty. Value your ability to perceive well and to communicate well with others. This ability does not develop without your time, your interest, and your effort. Being able to be insightful on what happens around you and to be able to communicate with people about it is a really big tool in the stock market, because you can notice what the sentiment is and talk to people about why they get into the trades they do, and you can learn from other people's mistakes.
Oh yeah, I feel that, man. We do a lot of talk about the emotions of the market and the psychology behind the economic situation, and I think we're going to continue to talk a little bit about that today. But with that said, unless anybody else from the audience has some quotes, I'm so ready to talk about futures right now, you guys. Let's get into it. Okay, S&P 500 futures. So it's, I mean, and this is the thing, right? What do we call these patterns? Well, I'm looking at it, and if I look over the past few days coming from March, I mean, just coming into March, I see supports being broken. I see lower lows and lower highs. I'm seeing a very obvious downtrend. And yes, we are at the bottom. I'm seeing a nice recovery pattern that's looking like it's going to happen. We do have a previous support zone that is kind of, I expect to be a little bit more of a resistance or a supply zone at this point at 3848. And at the upper bounds of that at 3863. But if we just look at this, our last high was at 3908. The last high before that was at 3935. The last one before that was at 3959. We're slowly but surely making our way farther and farther down. And I think at this point we can start to look at the idea of a real retracement. There's a lot of economic news that we're waiting on. People are still feeling some type of way about the idea of stimulus. We know that the Senate might push back that vote from today, which I thought was going to happen. We're still seeing pushback on the minimum wage thing, and I feel like the market's reflecting a lot of these things. And if you look at the way the price action's moving, it's also purely reflected, right? And maybe we do have a decent day, but are we going to have a decent run into Friday where we know that there's most likely going to be a sell-off? I don't know. It's just an odd situation right now, and it definitely makes me want to take as much patience as I can when approaching the market. Let's go on over to the Nasdaq, which is actually like percentage-wise up for the day, right? But who cares? Because let's look at the fall that it took. And why do we watch the futures, right? What's the important piece of news there? Well, the futures are traded 24 hours a day. So we can gauge that market sentiment. We can gauge where it's at if we look at how the UK market's closed, down. We look at how the Asian market's closed, down. We look at how we closed yesterday, down. So when I see this beginning morning and it's looking sort of decent, that's great. That's all good and gravy. But we still, once again, have confirmed that we're having lower lows. We're also not doing any breaking of the resistance that I see on our NASDAQ chart at, let's see here. 13,358, right? And it's a whole zone, so we can go 13,300 all the way up to 13,400, right? But this has been over, we haven't been over that since the end of February 23rd. And it's not as though that was a long time ago or anything like that, but these are short-term trends, right? And do I think that the market's just going to crash and never recover? Like, no, absolutely not. But the idea of a larger retracement, now I'm open to that, and I'm seeing that pattern kind of validated. We're definitely breaking trend. This is creating a new trend, and that new trend has a different shape and different direction. We are seeing increased levels of volatility where the price is, I mean, it's still moving to a lower low every single time we have this pullback. And so until I see a change of the economic situation or the underlying conditions, and until I see the 10-year treasury bond yield going down, it just, I mean, here we go. Looking at the 10-year, we're up for the day, right? Up 0.48% at 1.47. Same thing with the 5-year. 5 years up 0.41%, right? And this isn't the crazy jump that we saw a week ago, so it's not killing me. I'm not just running away from the market. This is tradable, and for sure, this is absolutely tradable. But I am concerned. I am watching all the things that we've started to watch here and getting a message. Now, an interesting storyline is the Russell. Right. And the Russell has been this sort of place of resiliency. It has been trading completely in a range recently. Yesterday, it broke that range. And this is the thing where, like, support and resistance, they're not an exact science, right? Things can absolutely break a little bit below support, and that does not necessarily invalidate the support line. It just says that, you know, we've definitely had some volatility that's taken us below there. But when things do invalidate the support and then come back into that range and trade it, well, now I kind of hold that against it. It's a little bit of a downgrade for me, right? I'm not as confident that it's going to respect that support line again. And I look to establish that trend. I say, hey, is there a new trend that's coming on? And so what we had yesterday with the Russell sort of breaking that support line, but still staying inside of our major ascending channel, it is just telling me that this volatility is market wide. This pullback is market wide, and with that said, the small caps are still showing a high level of resiliency in navigating this. We sit right now at the bottom of our range, which was trading between 2,200 and 2,300, and here we sit again at 2,206. Right, so barely above, but this is that thing that I was talking about yesterday, where we're at these key support levels, and I don't know if you're a technical trader, this is what you eat and breathe, right? If we see a nice bounce off support, we see trend, confirmed on a shorter time frame. We look at the long-term range and we say, okay, this support has been validated historically over a longer time frame. That is how I enter a trade, right? That is one of my key metrics for entering into something. And here we sit again. And so I'm still waiting for that confirmation of the potential uptrend. I'm waiting for that confirmation of the potential divergence from the overall market, because there have been things that are divergent. Every single day, with every single red day, we've had stocks on our watch list that have amazing days based off of, fundamental or catalytic factors. Today, we've got an OPEC meeting again, right? And we've seen oil be a safe house, or just a place that has been moving contrary to the market. We've seen some of our emerging technologies be a safe house and contrary to the market. And I'm wondering, and we can find that by looking through these indices, looking through our sectors, and really finding the places where, there's still a safe haven. Or alternatively, you're trading with the market trend, right? And looking at the indices yet again and trading them based off of, the bounce off resistance. Or once we break support, now you have to look to the next historic support, right? That's where your Fibonacci retracements would come in handy. And we're going to start doing that. I'll put up another chart that I'm working on maybe tomorrow. It just depends. Maybe I'll do it farther into the day. But there are just some crazy storylines going on as well. I just want to look at crude oil real quick. Let's see. Where is she? Yeah, so we look at crude oil. Speaking of oil, up 2% on the day so far, right? And I think natural gas is actually looking down. But once again, we're waiting on news. We're waiting on that OPEC meeting to see whether or not they're going to continue to slow down the oil drilling. And I'm into this, right? This is going to be important news. I believe it's at 10 o'clock Eastern. For anybody who is sitting in those trades, like, this is where we're going to look. Same thing on the other side, still in commodities, right? Basic materials, I think, has also been slightly resilient as we look to across the market, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in our SPY breakdown. Hey, you guys, anybody else looking at futures with me?
What do you think, Elaine?
Oh, hey, Ben, good morning.
Yeah, no, I'm obviously immersed as you are in it. Just watching, come off the lows. I don't know if you guys just talked about the ADP print here at 8:30 Eastern. A little bit better than expected in terms of initial claims. So that was an interesting data point. To your point with, you talk about an overshoot, which I thought was a really, really great point, and good for everybody in the room to think about that. When you talked about breaking down beyond a 50-day or 100-day, 200-day, I mean, market always overshoots, right? And looking at Nasdaq, we're touching that 100-day moving average at this point and to the downside, right? So we could overshoot that. We could maybe bounce off it. The last time we touched it was actually the November, just prior to the November election. So if you're looking at Qs, if you're tech heavy, if you're growth heavy, you're probably watching that closely. And yeah, that 100-day, we're right about at that level, and it looks like Nasdaq is just trying to peak green here from the pre-market. But yeah, that the initial claims print was important. The other important component, not just the OPEC meeting, to your point, is the Powell comments at noon Eastern time. That'll be interesting as well as it relates to inflation.
Huge. I think we'll actually live stream it on Clubhouse because, yeah, I'm with you. Whatever Jay Powell says. And it's been really interesting, the lax stance that they've taken towards, worrying about inflation, the way that they're talking, where it just seems like everything, like, why are we worried about that? We look at how the bond yield is, and I still think that, I'm waiting for him to say that they're going to start buying future bonds. Right, like I'm waiting for him to start actually hedging. I guess that's the news that I want to hear from Jay Powell. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what the Fed's thinking, but at the same time, playing this market, it has been very clear the overall trend and direction, and without some sort of catalyst, without some sort of federal interaction, I just feel like we can see the pattern and trend that's been forming.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about the longer end, right? Because we know the Fed is very active on the twos, fives, tens. The 7-year was a bust last week with the auction on the 7-year. So yeah, it's always interesting for me to watch 20s plus and see what that's doing, because that's more unadulterated, so to speak, and the market's telling you something on that end of the curve. It's really tough on that short end, like you said. I mean, it's anchored down. That's where the Fed's active, and that's where they're really putting some pressure on rates. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting day today, particularly leading into tomorrow's NFP print. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that at length in the morning tomorrow. That NFP print will drop 8:30 Eastern time tomorrow morning.
Absolutely. Shivam, good morning, man. Are you looking at futures with us?
Yep, and I'm sticking to my guns on S&P 500, 3790, 3786, and 3900 range. We are right between that. I think we had the same discussion yesterday, right? And I was pointing out the same stuff, that till the time we don't break it, it's going to be an inside day. And it's kind of weird, but I'm just a bit more optimistic today, because we have hit this number 3790 couple of times already. We hit it the last week. It was a complete bloodbath, but then we had a bounce. The main thing I would say is, if you are not confident about your trade, just don't play it. Just let the market settle down, right? And especially let Jeff Powell speak at 12, and Jerome Powell let us speak at 12, and then we'll come to know what's going to happen exactly. But till then, let's just wait and watch. I have some kind of optimism today, and I ended up telling that to Christopher. So let's see how things go.
Interesting. Where's your optimism coming from? Are you looking at the weekly chart with me?
If you see, we touched 3786 on SPX, right? And once we did that, we had a good bounce off. There's a good amount of confidence and good amount of settlement. I think a lot of bulls start to buy when things are breaking that support level. And we are very close to it. So I feel that at least for today, the clouds are going to go back. It doesn't mean that things are going to look brighter and better. The entire thing is, till the time we are not breaking 3786, 3790, and 3900, we are going to be in this choppy bracket. It's kind of boxed image for us. And one thing which has happened on S&P 500, if you just look at Amazon and Netflix, they both are boxed. They are between what they were in July and what they are right now. So they both have a very tumultuous kind of movement. Still, I'm having this optimism that today is the day when it has hit the low floor again, and it's gonna bounce back.
I just see a little bit of divergence, and I'm kind of with you on looking at the S&P differently, right? I've approached all three of these indices differently,
Right.
where I look at the S&P, we're still kind of in a middle range. They're have a lot farther to go before they break the overall expanding trend that I've been looking at. Whereas I look at the Nasdaq, and she's already broken trend. This is far below the level actually that I'm looking for. I mean, this is an establishment of a new trend for me. We've broken the uptrend. It's obviously a consolidation pattern. And the question is, how much of retracement are we going to see before we continue that uptrend? And tax valuations have been the place that I feel like a lot of the value is just being taken, right? Whereas, and we look at the Russell, and the Russell, I mean, she's cooking. She's so close to peachy. And if I was gonna, I guess, take more major index bets, like I'm looking at the Russell and saying this has showed resilience. It's continued to show resilience. It showed bounce back, and maybe that's where I would potentially look to play if I was going to play for an overall kind of move as opposed to SPY. Neither here nor there, I guess. It's just me thinking out loud.
Exactly. I think that's the thing with SPY right now, right? Like, the movement is so blocked. It's so boxed between these two support and the resistance level that it's gonna continue to get inside or outside day. It's things have to start moving better, and I think what it needs is some kind of a catalyst. Whether whether it comes from today's meeting at 12 or whatever happens, some kind of external factor comes into play. But things have to start rolling either uphill or downhill. But something has to happen to break the support or the resistance.
Yeah, I would just add this too. I mean, watch vol, VIX, VVIX, both kind of pointing higher. But what's interesting is the skew index has rolled over a little bit. So yeah, I would watch the vol indicators as well. To Elaine's point, to your point, Shivam. I think those are going to really tell the tale going out, obviously, into the print tomorrow morning, like we talked about. And the Powell comments, we'll see what happens. But for me, it's encouraging to see that skew roll over a little bit. Whereas, we are seeing, again, the VVIX kind of drag the VIX a little bit higher. It's so sticky above this 26 handle. So those are the indicators I'm watching too. But the skew is one. The MOVE index, MOVE MOVE index, that's the volatility of the options in the bond market too. That's kind of spiking a little bit too, with just this kind of nastiness with the sell-offs and the short end of the curve. So those are the other things I just keep your eyes on in terms of just getting a sense of what the cadence is for the next week or two. But I do feel like, particularly in the tech and growth trades, we're finding some support here. I mean, hopefully we'll know by the afternoon if we are. But to me, I feel like I think we've seen a little capitulation, frankly. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, discounted cash flows, valuation models, et cetera, those are going to come into play. But just psychologically, I think we've capitulated to some extent. And that.
Hey Ben, just a quick question. Do you think that like the drawback in tech over the past 2-3 weeks, I feel like it's directly correlated to revaluating the stocks against the 10-year?
100%, 100%.
1,000%. I agree too.
Yeah. So I think we got to navigate through that and, see the Powell comments, see what the print looks like tomorrow morning. And just, again, watch these vol indicators, because, again, so much of that tech trade is also being adulterated with this options activity. Again, options activity is still very elevated. If you look at call options activity versus the rest of the market, it's still very elevated. So there's still a lot of people out there just, buying lottery tickets. So we need to be cognizant of that with regard to the way this is getting hedged from the dealers. So, yeah, I mean, I'm watching vol very closely, but this is great, man. It's cool to be able to jump in and have a quick chat before this thing opens.
Yeah. So actually, we have a segment, and let's kind of move on to their next segment. Sorry, Patrick, did you have anything you wanted to say? Are you looking at futures with us too?
Yes. Thank you for having me. I have a question, and that is the Powell speech at lunchtime. Is there anything priced in? So, in case he's not supportive of the markets or something, will it disappoint, or what exactly is the market expecting from the speech? Thank you.
I would just say this. I mean, if there's any indication of tapering, nobody's concerned about interest rate moves. Obviously, that's down the road. But if there's any indication of tapering, I think that will create some disruption in the equity space. So I think that's really what people look for. I anticipate him to continue to be very dovish, very accommodative, et cetera. But if there's any indication of tapering, I think, at least if you're a bull.
Especially if you're a bull. All right, you guys. So it's most people's favorite segment. Let's get into it.
All right, guys. So it is time for a trash trade. You know how it goes. The market's been bleeding out the past couple of days. If maybe you bought the dip and it wasn't done dipping, or you jumped into a trade and maybe it wasn't the best idea. Now's the time to raise your hands. Let's talk about it. I will say this: my initial trash trade this week, when I told you guys that I took an options contract, I reduced my shares on KMPH and bought an options contract. That worked out, and so I'd like to remove that from the trash trades list. Other than that, I really didn't trade yesterday. So if anybody else wants to jump in there with something that maybe wasn't the greatest idea, go ahead.
Yo, I know. I heard so many of you guys buying ARK earlier this week. Stand up and present yourselves.
I bought Palantir yesterday, and it was definitely not done dipping, so that was fun.
I bought Palantir. I'm still holding on to it. It's my long-term commitment, so I'll just continue doing that. I have some leaps on it. Wherever the premium decays, I'm fine. But one which I did, and it was it was completely rogue, didn't need to do it, was Snow and Snowflake. And I just did not need to play with it. And I decided to burn my hands. I had a great day after KMPH. I was riding the day on Draftkings, made some good money, and I was like, you know what, hell with it. I'm just going to go for Snow, and Snow smoked me bad. So yeah, let's see how that goes today.
I just realized I lied. So you guys know I've been all about trying to get some news as far as like COVID relief and things like that as soon as I can get it. And so I decided to average down and add another 3% of my account to ITP at 72 cents. And oh my gosh, I'm down like 36% on the entire trade. I'm really ready to cut my losses here, but I'm going to give it another day or two to see if I can get a little bit of a bounce back, and then I'll just cut in there.
Yeah, but Chris, that's hoping. We don't want to hope. I just say cut those losses, man, and re-enter at a better place. But different strategies. I feel you.
Don't
For
believe in
sure.
the hopium.
I'm going to add to my position on ACTC, even though all these SPACs are getting beaten up. That one I feel is undervalued. So it's just getting better and better, more attractive.
I bought a SOS Weekly yesterday, and it was doing great. I think I was up like, I don't know. I don't remember exactly what percent I was up, but I just know the dollar amount was like maybe 118 or so. And then I looked away for a second because I was doing something. And then I looked back and it was like when it was falling at like 1 o'clock or something. And so I was like, man, I just like got scared, got out real quick. So I only made like $45 or something off it. But yeah, I don't know if that's trash, but yeah, just I needed to pay more attention.
It went in the trash when you said weekly, but yeah.
Yeah, nah, it was literally like the only money I could put forward, and I knew where the stock was kind of going, but I wasn't watching it close. I was watching it real close, but then I was doing something for like a second, and I just looked away for like maybe like 10 minutes, and then I looked back and it was falling, and I was like, no.
I mean, that happened to me like two weeks ago. I don't know. I came in here and talked about it. I took a winning trade. It was up. I turned around. I started working on a calendar, something like that, and she went the other way. So now let's go back to Monday, whatever the day that Rocket boomed off, and like we talked about it. You guys, I love Rocket Mortgage. I believe firmly in this company and their trajectory. So of course I bought a call first thing in the morning, but I learned from my lessons. So I had to do some work. I closed the contract out at a loss, mind you, small loss, no big deal. And then watch it go up 2,000%. I don't know if that's a trash trade or not. Like I'm with you, Daniel. You shouldn't like just trade things that are moving quickly, that have high volatility, and turn around and not care what happens. But boy, hitting it
Yeah,
on both sides.
I was like, no, no, I'm good. I was just watching the percent, and I just kept seeing it go up, and I was like, no, I'm good. I was super close, and then I just turned around for like 5-10 minutes and looked back. I was texting my friend or something, talking to my friend, and then I looked back and I was like, no.
All right, cool. Fahim, Ali, did y'all want to jump in on trash trades? I know we try to keep this segment a little short.
Sure. So actually, yesterday I thought that I'm averaging down on my EBON position, so I went like whole way in, and today it went actually another 10-20% down. So I don't know. I might actually just cut the loss and get out of it.
Can I ask a question on that real quick? Did you jump into like EBON or average down on EBON because Kathy Woods pumped Bitcoin yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to echo that sentiment. I'm in EBON with you, bro.
Shall we stay on it, or what are your thoughts on it?
We'll jump into that in the playlist. I mean, in the watch list. I just want to make sure that we stay on time. Go ahead, Fahim, and then we'll jump in, Ali.
Gotcha.
I'm just riding this QQQ until it turns around, whether it's in a month or a year. But
Oh my God, Fahim, just enter into a spread, man. Like it's time. Like limit those losses. Go ahead and throw a put on the other side, and like let's have some, let's make some money on the other way. And I don't know.
Oh yeah. So what I usually do is for tax loss harvesting, I will just pick a similar ETF and short that.
Perfect.
So, but I'm not gonna get out this position. I'm just gonna hold the paper losses for now.
I'm into that. As long as you're hedging too, or aware that you can just hedge that, like, because it's not a terrible position. It's not the worst thing in the world. And that's what derivatives really help us to do, right? Hedge your risk on the other side on underlying stock that you own. Or either way, use a spread to balance out that delta. With that said, oh, also, you guys, Kathy Woods, I was reading something today that said that 2/3 of all of the holdings in Kathy Woods ETFs were not profitable last year, and that's kind of nuts. I just think it's interesting her strategy, and also so many people are like really into it on the short term side of they've been holding for a couple months or something like that, and I just see her profitability just moving farther and farther out, in terms of really recognizing some of those emerging technologies she's invested in. But another conversation for another day.
Yeah, just one thing real quick on that. One of my old classmates, he's got his own hedge fund managing like, I don't know, a couple $100 million. And he shares some information every now and then. And one thing that he shared a couple days ago is that a lot of the investment community is now looking to bet against ARK because of just the mean revision. So a lot of people are, and I think that's why she stopped posting a lot of her trades on a daily basis, is because people are starting positions against ARK now. Just FYI. This guy,
Yeah.
he's a solid investor. He's a macroeconomic investor, but his calls are more times right than wrong.
All right, you guys, let's keep it going. Hey, Alana, I'm trying to add you to the stage, but it's not letting me. You might want to leave the room and come back. With that said, quick refresh.
Welcome to the #1 pre-market show on Clubhouse, presented by Stockhouse University. We are not financial advisors, and this is not financial advice. This is a conversation among friends that love stocks and want to improve our profitability by coming here every day and talking about the market, relevant news, and how we're going to use that information to profit. We think education should be accessible and affordable to everyone, so we have a completely free Discord that has tons of resources and over 1,600 amazing members at all different skill levels that are all talking about the market and trying to grow as well. We also have free classes on Sundays. We would love it if you would join the community and contribute, because together we are so much more powerful than we are individually. Invite your friends, invite your family. Let's all create opportunities for generational wealth.
S&P, the Nasdaq, the Dow Jones, where all the old money stashed at. Bet you ain't no square on Cash App. Stock, name an asset that could match.
Yo, every single day, favorite song by a guy named Santino. He normally hops on stage with us. We might see him make an appearance
He
later.
normally does, and he always comes in like 2 minutes after we play a song.
I swear people ping him. All right, looking at SPY. This is the same continued pattern that I talked about in the futures. It's kind of the same thing, and here we sit. So this could be a key decisive moment. I mean, we've seen it touch 378 1, 2, 3 times now, and this is the sort of shape where, if I was going to make the bullish case, right, that's called the triple bottom. That's potentially a little bit of a confirmed support zone. However, that in combination with the lower highs for me, it just doesn't read well. It would be a consolidation towards the downside, and I see a lot of volume spiking when we have these larger downward movements, and not so with the upward movements, telling me that we do have a lot of selling pressure. It kind of still speaks to the overall fear sentiment in the market. But let's just stick to our activation levels and not try to predict things, right? Because that's the best way to go. So I'm looking at this 378 level extremely strong, and underneath that, I mean, I put 365 in the title. That's the number that I'm looking at. Like I could see it happening. It's a real number. On the other side, I'd love to see it break over 385. I'd love to see us continue to hold at least over our 200 moving average, if not the 50. So for me, I could get really into this on the upside if we could hold over 385, start moving towards 389, and reclaim some of that ground. But as we sit between 381 and 384, I'm just waiting for some sort of movement to the upside. And whenever we're looking at these things from a technical perspective, at least for me, right, when I want to see or confirm a breakout to any side, past support or resistance, this is a combination of price action and volume. Right. So that shows us kind of our demand. If I see a break to the upside and I see the volume come in as well, okay, you know what? I might be really excited to take a position and start looking towards those price targets that we had. And it's the same thing with the break to the downside. If I looked and see us consolidating with volume coming down in the middle, that's even more kind of a sign that we definitely are looking for some sort of breakout. If we continue to consolidate with volume, that's something that I could be into as well, right? And we start to establish a range that we're going to trade in and move sideways for a little while until we see some positive news. I mean, I would call this mostly sideways movement anyways, because we have been sitting in sort of a similar range for a while. We're returning right to where we were back at the beginning of February. And, you know, sort of December, these are the same numbers that we were at. So this does look like a long-range consolidation to me. And the question is, where is the pressure going to come from when we look at our support and resistance lines? So currently, we're bouncing. We're holding at that 381 level. Percentage-wise, barely any change on the day, to be honest. We closed yesterday at 381.42. We sit at 381.10. So not much of a difference. But yeah, for me, I'm really looking at these key levels, and I'm not liking the way that we're bouncing back. I think we could have just a really short, small consolidation day, to be honest. As we move into Friday, I think everybody's waiting to see what Jerome Powell has to say. Anybody else looking at SPY with me?
Yeah, I am. This morning I was looking into buying calls on a drop, but realistically, I'm looking at the formation that was happening around the 25th of January this year, and just looking at how it descended the same way. I stopped looking at the support at 380, 378, and I'm actually looking at the 368. And for me right now, I'm just playing on the drop. The news today is going to really determine what happens, because if Jerome doesn't say anything along the lines of money soon, printer is going to go, we're going to see a very, very steep drop today, especially with the job report coming out Friday, which is most likely not going to be good. I want to say the stimulus is going to be like the boost or the bounce that we're going to see, but even then, that just may not be enough. I don't know. But you know, as usual, this market is very volatile, so I could be eating my words up within the next 22 minutes. Who knows?
I mean, at least for me right now, this key, beyond the key levels of 378, I guess the 50-day moving average has been something that I would really like to see respected. On the daily chart, I'm looking at it. We've really used that as a support over the past few days. Yes, there has been some tails and lows that went sunk under it, but it has continued to sort of hold above that 50-day moving average. And a break below it on that side as well could be something that would make me kind of start to look more for my bearish strategies. Anybody else looking at SPY with us? Are we going to go down and talk about some other indices real quick? Actually, you know what? Let's just do it. Energy closed yesterday at 49.85. Right now, opening at 50.36. So a slight uptick. I'm really interested in energy. We talked about the OPEC meeting. Energy as a whole also is very interesting. I was watching the CEO of Exxon on CNBC this morning, talking a little bit more about how they're going to use carbon capture technology and stick to the renewable fuels thing. So that's an interesting storyline developing, where we've seen a lot of profitability coming from the oil side and now integration. Don't get me wrong, the yield on a lot of our green energy technologies hasn't been fantastic, but as well as them becoming more efficient with their oil and lowering their overhead prices and then looking into the renewable sectors, I think that that's a really interesting way to stay on green energy while still sticking to something that has a profitability model that makes sense. Looking over at industrials, closed yesterday at 92.76. Right now we sit at 92.90, 95. And that's interesting. We've been watching this developing story on industrials go by, and still this is a chart that's actually continuing to break out and sort of uptrend. We had a hammer candle yesterday on the daily chart, and I don't know. I'm kind of into that. Now, if the overall market just rips down, of course, every sector is going to have some issues, but the resiliency going on in the industrials right now is nice. If we look at our financial sector, another sector that's really sort of benefited and been sort of a place to store value specifically, if you guys look at JPM, Goldman Sachs, over the past few days, it's been fantastic, to be honest. And that might be one of my watch list contributions. So we're holding under sort of like the upper trend line that I've drawn on my chart for financials. However, we're holding just underneath that and continuing to uptrend. If you look at this on a daily, the trend is also clear once again. So if we have the treasury bond yield thing and that continues to rise, like I'm still going to be looking for financials to be a place where I hold my money. Looking at basic materials, sorry, just materials. I just say XLB and my mind thinks basic. Holding over the 50, well above. Once again, consistent uptrend, bouncing off a support line that I have drawn at the 70 level. And right now we're, sorry, so it closed yesterday at 75. Right now sitting at 74.89. We have a high at 77.77 for our whole sector. So we do have space to run. We've seen materials be a place. I mean, I've talked about trading copper. Other people have come up here, talked about trading uranium. I've been trading steel. I think that materials continues to be another place where our cyclical trades, right? So energy, materials, and industrials have been the cyclical trades that have helped us when we've had these down days where tech has been taking a hit. I feel like the industrials trade is more of a reopening flavor. Let's go on over to tech. So if we look at tech, tech is trading deeply in a range. It could be finding a bottom. We're trading below our 50-day moving average. We closed yesterday at 129.42, opening today at 128.92. If you look at the past 2 days, this has seen a rejection from this one. Hold on, you guys. Seen a rejection from this 135 level, and this is something that's going to tell me overall, I think somebody said it earlier, that we're seeing the PE ratios be the place where this bond yield is coming out of, right? Where we're seeing the rebalancing of the market, and it's come a lot of times out of our high growth tech stocks. So I kind of expect to see this on the XLK chart personally. Trading in a range is good. The question is, are we going to form a new support here and trade sideways for a little while? Or are we going to continue to downtrend? That's always something I'm going to think about. And last but not least, because I don't want to take up too much more time, let's talk communications. We've all been really interested in 5G plays. We also talk a lot about the effects of social media companies and what's the news been? Oh, Twitter's adding something for having rooms that are just like Clubhouse, but they also have super influencers or something like that, some way that people are getting paid. We look at Facebook and we look at how their revenue growth has been. We keep talking about how data analytics is a big deal. I see some of these social media sites as being the premier place for some of these data analytics companies to get data, right? And yes, it might not be our personal information. We know that people are still being protective of some things, but the consumer habits and as a whole, that's the place. I see XLC is actually kind of being a place where I might be looking farther in the future. Currently, we're kind of overextended over the 50. I'm doing a consolidation pattern between, let's see, we closed yesterday at 71.82. Here we sit at 71.52. And we've been trading in a range between 70 and 73, basically. And I'm not sure that I'm expecting any large movements from this today, but this is me thinking 6 months in the future, 12 months in the future, a year in the future, and thinking about the communications sector as a whole, just continuing to see so much improvement and having a larger effect on the overall movement of technology and data in our lifetime. And I think that that's it for the sectors. Anybody have a sector ETF that they feel passionately about, or you guys want to get straight into the watch list?
I was ready for the news.
Hit it.
All right, cool. So, something that I thought was really, really strange today, and actually, if you guys are in the Discord, I added the trade with alerts page to the Twitter feed. I don't know if you guys saw that $13 million just coming to Lumen, but that was super exciting for me. So I did a little bit of research as far as like the Lumen ticker, and what I've come up with so far is there's 24K calls that just went in this morning to 2,671 puts. A lot of insider buying going on, and so they went from like 11 to like 13 this morning. If it keeps going at this rate, I'm thinking it's going to break that 1345. Let me just make sure it didn't already do that. I'm looking for 1372. Okay, so it went from 11 something to 1378. I'm actually looking for it to, if it jumps past the 14 range, to like skyrocket into the 16 range. Also, we've been talking about Square for the last few days. Square literally just led Jay-Z into the board of directors, and they spent a bunch of money, 297 million, making an investment into buying the majority of Title. And so I've been waiting for a good entry on Square because I kind of missed the boat the first time around. And so I'm looking at the fact that they just spent a whole lot of money to go ahead and get in on the dip.
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings about this Square acquisition of Tidal, to be honest. Does Tidal make any money? Does
No,
anybody use Tidal?
That
No.
was my first thought. I don't think it's a profitable company, but I'll definitely do research on it.
Yeah, I don't know about this move right here, to be honest. But I mean, from a technical perspective, Title is like the hi-fi, the high quality. But like aside from that, I don't know, man. I just don't know.
Daniel, I got a
I just
question
wanted
for
to
you.
jump into that title conversation real quick. I'm an audio guy, and throughout the landscape, all of my audio friends, we all use Tidal. We've all been paying for Tidal for 4 or 5 plus years. And the hi-fi audio that Tidal does let you bring in for audio people, it's a game changer when it comes to listening to streams. I don't have Spotify or iTunes anymore just based off the quality I could get from Tidal. Uh, I just wanted to throw that in. So I think it has a niche market. I know people in my sector pay for it all the time.
I
Yeah, I
have a
was
quick
gonna
question for
say.
you and Daniel, real quick, because you guys are audio guys, and I just wanted to, maybe throw a
10-second
monkey wrench in
question.
there. 10-second question: do you guys see maybe that acquisition, maybe with the financial backing that Square has and the audience that um, Title can get to? Do you think that maybe it could be an acquisition to maybe get a jump into the NFT space? Do you see it going there?
No.
I'm not too versed on the NFT space, so I can't comment.
That's a good question. Yeah, it could, right? But like he was saying, it is kind of a niche market already as far as people that are in Title. Like it's a lot of audio engineers and stuff that would definitely will pay that premium for it. But with Square coming in, yeah, maybe going into the NFT music space, possibly. But even if that happens, like that is also going to be a niche market for a little bit. So I don't know how soon they're going to be like real profitable on this. So I'm kind of weary on how much money they're spending.
I mean, also, hey, did anybody notice that Colin Kaepernick debuted a SPAC yesterday? No, nobody cares. I feel like in like certain communities, people definitely get pushed up to be like this big thing, and yeah, for sure. But niche market to me just sounds like not very profitable market, right? Like that's really what I hear when I look at an acquisition of this size. Like, and what was the point of getting Jay-Z? Like, the real question is, what is Jay-Z going to do on the board of directors at Square? Because I feel like this is just something to allow him to be a part of that. Moving on to other news, because we really don't have a lot of time. Draftkings landed an exclusive UFC deal. I think that's really interesting. We saw Dish make an acquisition to expand 5G, and so that's cool. We've watched Dish add the sports. I think Dish is actually priming to be a fairly big contender in streaming as we move forward. Do I have any other news? It's very interesting. Just the amount of actual options contracts from this year to last year has gone up by some 50 million or something like that. So it's really interesting just in terms of, although we have increased volatility in the markets, people are still feeling attracted to that. And I kind of like that as we continue to move forward and look to see how these trends are going to continue. Yeah, I think that's it. Anybody else have any notable news? And also, we talked about OPEC meeting. We talked about JPOW coming on. ADP was a big deal. So yeah, I think that's it. Let's get to our watch list and what we're actually looking at for the day. I will go first. So I should have talked about this yesterday. I swear that I did, but here we are. Anyways, I'm looking at GE, right? And if you look at GE on the chart, on a weekly chart, like we formed this beautiful cup and handle that started last year in March, basically, made a full recovery, did a slight retracement, bounced off the 50-day moving average, and it's currently breaking out. I don't think that this is a short-term trade, to be honest. Anybody who's looking for a long-term, I don't know, at least a little bit of a swing trade, I feel like GE has changed their model. They've showed that they're becoming more and more profitable. In general, industrials is a place where we look at Honeywell, you look at 3M, you look at, I mean, God, you can go Caterpillar, John Deere. Overall, the sector is booming and looking to continue to slowly grow, not like the way that tech does, but once again, this does have some level of technical exposure. And I don't know. I'm into the industrial side. I want to take trades that make sense to me, and this one makes sense for right now. Let's go down the list. Vanessa, what are you looking at for the day?
I am looking at Delta Airlines with everything opening up. I'm actually just watching it. It will probably be a long-term trade. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put my price targets in. So we watched the break of this cup over at the $13 level. I think right now we're sitting at 1360. So I would like a little bit of a pullback. You know, I don't like to buy things at the height, but this is a breakout play. So also on the flip side, I'd love to see momentum continue and a strong uptrend. The analysts like upgrades have it at 17. I look to these things and say I expect at least like a 50% move from like compared from the bottom basically on the upwards if we can continue that uptrend and see the momentum, which is shown once again by volume. So for me, I'm looking for $16 is kind of like my price target personally on this trade over the next 3 weeks. But it could be a significantly longer time. It just depends on how the momentum continues in that sector. Christopher, what are you looking at for the day?
Today, I'm actually sitting on my hands. I've got nothing for you.
Weak.
I know, but for the first day, I actually have to apply to my rules. I can't do it today.
Liv, what are you looking at for the day, man?
I think Liv had to step away.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm 0 for 2 right now. Shivam, what are you looking at for the day?
Yeah, so today I'm looking at some big names. First is Apple. Apple actually is kind of telling me a story with, if you look at its trend line, last year, March, Nasdaq was weak. And that's when Apple broke its trend line of sustainable growth, right? It is kind of onto that. If it does not hold on, then it's going to go a bit lower, or at least for getting better and betterment of Nasdaq and S&P 500, it needs to close at 126. At the same time, I'm looking at TTD, the trade desk. Trade desk, I have one of those put options on this thing. If it's literally a bounce time or a deep dive time for them. So let's see how that pans out. And the third one, which I'm scared about because I've got a pretty substantial position in Tesla. If Tesla does not hold 650, 651, 652 range, trust me, this is what I feel. It may be wrong. It can go below 600. It can go 598, 596. The way Tesla gets better is when it goes above 738, 740 range. That's the real floor or the real support level of Tesla. Right now, the place where it is, it's a no man's land for them. So these are the 3 big plays I'm looking into today.
Love that. And I have another tech play, but let's go through the list and see if anybody else has stuff, and then we can get to mine again. Daniel, what are you looking at for the day?
I'm with Chris, man. I'm sitting on my hands. I'm gonna keep doing research on the other ventures that I'm getting into. I'm gonna make some beats because, like I was telling Ford yesterday,
all right, next, Fahim, what are you into for the day?
Nothing really. Just one position of mine that's doing okay this week is Navia, which is an autonomous play, which is pretty crappy overall, but it's doing okay. It's up like 9-10% last couple of days.
What's the ticker?
NAVYA. It's traded in Europe somewhere.
Gotcha.
It's up 8% today.
Good morning, Don. Welcome to the stage. Is there anything you're looking at for today?
Nah, not really. I just wanted to ask you guys, like, how do you feel about playing stocks after earnings? Like, after they announce earnings and stuff like that?
We love it, man. As long as you're not trying to predict earnings. I mean, if you're just talking about playing an earnings reaction, especially, so the way that I look at earnings even is like, there are plenty of stocks that have good earnings. They still take a pullback. I call this an overreaction, and then we play that reaction back to, the actually market value of the stock. So I can't think of any good examples for that right now because I'm kind of trying to move. But I
How do
like,
you?
if you look
I,
at your earnings sheet, basically, I would just go back a week, 2 weeks ago, and really see how those things played out. A lot of companies had great earnings, and just because of where we're at in the market right now, still had kind of a bad price reaction.
right. Yeah. So I'm kind of looking at FUBO. I know it took a crazy dip, but that's one I'm looking at to play after earnings.
We love Fubo over here, man. It's definitely been on the watch list. I think there's a lot of tech stocks, and the streaming thing in general. Fubo raised its guidance, and I'm really into it in the long term. In the short term, I'm kind of waiting to see how this volatility breaks out. A lot of these tech stocks are really at a place where it's obvious by the dip situation. The question is the dip done dipping yet? And so for that, we got to wait for some confirmation. But I'm into it. What level are you looking at Fubo for? Or you like it right where it is?
Yeah, it looks pretty decent where it's at right now. I know it has a support level, a resistance level, but yeah, it looks pretty good right now.
Yeah, I just say watch the overall sector. When I look at this on a weekly chart, we still have definite. I mean, just zoom a little bit farther out, and it looks kind of knife-ish. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 down weeks, straight down. And there really isn't much support in this region historically. I mean, 32.77 could be that support level. I'm into it. I don't know. I'd almost want to see it touch the 200 at this point. Well, I'm with you though, man. We're looking at it. I like that. Hey, good morning, Shanice. What are you looking at for the day?
Good morning. So, I'm looking at Boeing. I've been watching it for a while and I'm just watching the trend of it. And I'm not going to do anything right today, but as I'm watching it, it seems like it keeps consolidating for the most part in the same area. And it looks like pre-market it's already at 233. So I'm actually looking to possibly do a put on it because it seems like it dances around this range and then it just kind of just drops off, just a quick in and out possibly. So I'm definitely watching my Bowen. I'm also with the guy that talked about, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, talked about the Tesla. Definitely going to be watching that too because I'm looking to do a put on them also. It seems like the range that they're at now, like he said, no man's lane, and I think it's possibly going to be going down again.
She's going down. I just want to see a break below 620, and I'm hopping straight in with y'all on the puts. I've been waiting for this, and I am ready. Like I'm ready to see Tesla at 500, and whatever. Maybe that's a little bit of a bias, but at the same time, I'm really watching those support levels as well, and it makes me look at ARK the same way, where it's like, yo, if Tesla hits 500, like ARK might be on the biggest discount of all time, and at the same time, it's just going to take a big hit, just because of the heavy percentage holdings that she has. Um, with that said, I just want to kind of thank everybody for coming and giving us their stock picks. I appreciate everybody who comes on stage. Before the market opens, we love to do some affirmations and just get ready, and I kind of want to hop into that. I'm ready to trade today. I am ready to trade today. I will wait for the right entry. I'm going to be patient about it because patience is a position. I am, I have been, and I will continue to be a profitable trader. I can be profitable regardless of the market direction. I am confident in my trades. I'm grateful to be in the market and thankful for the opportunity to create generational wealth, not only for myself, but for the people around me. Be careful, you guys. Trade with the plan. Trade with the trend. I love and appreciate everybody. We'll talk after the market. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming. This is Stockhouse U, and we're out.